guys, and welcome to my channel. Welcome to part 2 of my labor and delivery stories for my girls. This is going to be Zoey's labor and delivery stories, so if you haven't watched Charlotte's already, I will have the link in the description below, but definitely go watch that. With Charlotte, I had an epidural birth, and with Zoey, I'm going to tell you all about my natural unmedicated birth. So, rewind to 14 months ago. I had Zoey on September 16th, 2018, and my due date was actually September 22nd. So I had her at 39 weeks and 1 day. So she was a little bit early, but nothing, she was still full term. At the end of my pregnancy with Zoey was a lot different than with Charlotte. So my whole pregnancy with Zoey, I was way more chill. I was like, I got this. And I also had a toddler to take care of, so I wasn't able to sit back and just worry constantly. Zoey was a very active baby, so she was very, in my tummy, so she was very reassuring with all of her kicks and everything like that. Once I was around, I want to say 26 weeks, my stomach stopped growing almost. I was measuring much smaller. I started dropping weeks behind. So I got to 1 week behind, and then they were like, that's fine, it's nothing to worry about, could be the way she's positioned. Then I got to 2 weeks behind, and I was at 2 weeks behind for a couple weeks. And then I got to 3 weeks behind, and then they're like, okay, well now we're gonna start to not worry, but we need to look into this. I was very consistent, I want you to at least just do a growth scan. What's it gonna hurt? Let's just do a growth ultrasound. And I was like, because a lot of people were saying your belly is just your abdomen and stuff is holding the babies in. But girl, I had just had a baby 2 years earlier, and I did not do abdominal exercises to strengthen my core before I got pregnant again. Just tell you that. So I was like, there's no way my muscles are just holding this baby in. Well, and they're like, well, or she's just really small, and that's fine. My husband was a very small baby. All of his siblings were around 8 pounds, and he was only 6 pounds. So I was like, maybe she's just smaller than Charlotte was. And Charlotte was a very average sized baby. She was 7 pounds. So we eventually had a growth scan at around 33 weeks, I think. And she was measuring average on everything. She wasn't too small, she wasn't big. They said my stomach personally just stopped growing. It was growing, but at a slower rate, and they said they weren't really just the way she was positioned. She was head down, ready to come out. So let's go to the start of my labor with her. I went into my appointment at 35 weeks. It was the first time they checked me. I was a little over 35 weeks, and I was already 1 and almost a half centimeters, and I think she said 40% effaced. And so that was shocking to me, because I was 1.5 centimeters when they did my membrane sweep when I was over 39 weeks with Charlotte. So being 35 weeks and I was already that, it freaked me out personally, because I was like, I'm not ready to have her. She's not ready to come out. And what if she comes, because Charlotte came the next day after I was 1.5 centimeters. She was born the next day. But I think that's because I had the membrane sweep. So I did have contractions with real contractions with Zoey. I had Braxton Hicks from 14 weeks on, just like I did with Charlotte. But with Zoey, my contractions were a lot more painful. I started having them around 35 weeks, and I noticed I had them more when I was up chasing around Charlotte and stuff. So I wasn't on bed rest or anything, but they did tell me to take it a little bit more easy, because they didn't want me to progress too fast. But she said being 1.5 centimeters at 35 weeks was perfectly normal, and she'll want to see me go up a centimeter every week until birth. So at my next appointment, I was about 36.5 weeks, almost 37 weeks, and I was 2.5 centimeters dilated, and I think it was about 70% effaced. So I was progressing, and I really thought she was coming so soon. And then it got to the point where I'm playing the waiting game, and I'm like, why is she not here yet? And even though at 37 weeks, I don't think they're completely ready. They can be. And so I was ready. We had gotten in those in that week's time, we had gotten so much ready because I thought she was coming really soon. my 38-week appointment, I was about a 3, but I wasn't any more effaced. And I was having like the mild contractions, nothing major. Well, then comes, I was 39 weeks and like that entire day I had went to my mom's house with Charlotte, and we were just like playing outside and stuff, and I told her, I was like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm having more painful contractions, but I've been having these real contractions that are just really mild. But these ones this day felt more painful, like more pressure. And so I had a few on and off, like every couple hours I would have one. And I had a few while we were at her house. Then we make our way home, we have dinner, everything, and we put Charlotte to bed. And I'm sitting on the couch with Wayne, and I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna have one. And I had one on the couch, and it was a little bit more painful than the ones I had throughout the day. Wayne goes to bed, and he is like out because Wayne was working as a millwright when I was pregnant for Zoey, and he had really, really long days where he did a ton of like hard labor, so he was so tired that day, and he went to bed. And around 9 o'clock, I got up to go to bed. And I got up, went to bed. Literally within minutes of laying down, I had a contraction that was painful. And I was like, is this the start of something? Because it felt like a real, true contraction. So I didn't waste a breath, and I got up and I started bouncing on my ball. I didn't wake Wayne up or anything, and I was so calm. And it was like one of the most incredible feelings, I feel like, for being in labor. Like I wasn't panicked, I wasn't like screaming in pain. I was very calm, and I felt very in control, which was incredible. Like I'm like tearing up because it makes me like I missed that. I don't know, like it's weird. Like I'm so excited to be pregnant again, to have that feeling. Even though it was painful, I was so calm and I felt like so in control, and I'm like, I'm meeting my baby today because I knew I was in labor. So then I'm sitting there like bouncing. I text my mom, or I call her, and I'm like, I'm in labor. Like I'm just like bouncing, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm in labor. I started timing my contractions. I told her, and she's like, yep, you're in labor. And I was got to the point, like I wanted to labor at home because this time I was very determined to have a natural birth. I knew I could do it. I told myself, I was like, if I just wasn't stuffed up when I was pregnant for Charlotte, I could have had a natural birth. But really, I don't think I could have, because I didn't prepare myself when I was pregnant for Charlotte to have a natural birth. I just said I was gonna do it. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about the different ways to cope with your labor pains. I didn't think about breathing that much, like practice like the breathing techniques or anything. I was just bound and determined to have one. What was Zoey's pregnancy, at the beginning of her pregnancy, we actually lived in Tennessee still, and I had plans to give birth at a birthing center where you can't get any pain medicine. So our plans changed because Wayne ended up getting out of the Army, and we moved back to Ohio in the middle of my pregnancy. But I had appointments at my birthing, a lot of information on giving birth naturally, unmedicated. And so I think I was a lot more prepared with Zoey's birth, and I also knew what to expect. I knew what labor felt like. The only thing I was worried about is I still had that feeling of having my contractions in my chest. I don't know why I have contractions like that. It was extremely, extremely hard to breathe through contractions when you feel like you can't breathe. But I did it. But yeah, moving on. So it was around 9 o'clock, I had my first contraction. I get up, go bounce on my ball, I'm talking to my mom and everything. My mom was going to be in the room with me, as well as Wayne, obviously, and then my little sister. So I texted Mandy, my little sister, and I told her like, hey, I think I'm in labor, I was like, stay awake just in case I call you in the middle of the night, because she really wanted to be in the room. And so I called my dad, and I felt really bad because my dad and my stepmom and my stepsister were the ones that were going to keep Charlotte for us when I went into labor. And they were at a wedding, just like having a blast, and I called them around 11 or I called my dad around 10, I think, and I was like, I'm in labor. I don't think it's a huge rush to get over here, but like, if you guys could come here, I think we're gonna go to the hospital soon. And so they got there and around 11, and we left to go to the hospital around 11. This whole time, I just let Wayne sleep. That's how calm I was. I woke him up and I'm like, hey, I'm in labor. Time to go to the hospital. He grabs all our bags and packs up the car. Like, he was literally like, what? You're in labor? Like, I don't know why I was so calm. I am such an anxious, like, neurotic person, but during the beginning of my labor with Zoey, I was very calm and I felt very in control. So then he gets everything packed up. My dad stays at my house with Charlotte, and we head to the hospital. And it's kind of crazy because when we were driving to the hospital, it was in the middle of the night, so no one was really in town. All of the stop lines were doing like the blinking yellow thing, so you could just drive through them. It was like the proceed with caution. I don't know why they were like that. I don't think they were hardly ever like that. I think they might do that at night because there's not a lot of traffic. So we got there super quickly, and my contractions started hardcore. Like, right off the bat, my contractions from that very first one at 9 o'clock started off at, like, same with Charlotte, around 7 minutes, and then they went to 5 minutes, and then they were 3 minutes consistently, and they did not change. By the time we got to the hospital, they were 3 minutes. So at the hospital, they take you in at the front desk there. You don't go up to labor and delivery. They have to come down and get you at this hospital. Look who it is! We're talking about your birth story. She woke up from her nap. Oh, yeah, your baby. You want to show me your baby? Show me your baby. So I'm gonna try to nurse her while I finish this story. So we got in, and they took all of our information. I told them my labor pains and everything, and they come down with a wheelchair, and I'm like, can I just walk up? Because like I was in pain, but I didn't want to like sit in a wheelchair. And they're like, no, like we have to put you in a wheelchair to go up there. So we did that, we get over. Oh, and so I didn't do triage here. They put me straight into the room that I was going to give birth in. So that was really nice. I went in there, got in my gown and everything, and the nurse came in to check me. Well, what's so crazy is this nurse that I had my whole labor and delivery with Zoey, she was my mom's like student. So my mom is a nurse and she worked in a nursing home. She wasn't my mom's student. I don't know what she was like. She like shadowed my mom when she was like an intern or something. I don't know. And so she knew me when I was a baby. When my mom would bring me into like her work into the nursing home and stuff, like she knew me. And now she was like helping birth my child. So that was pretty cool. My mom and my sister got there right away, and Wayne and them were just chatting while I was in labor. When they checked me, I was only a 4. So that kind of freaked me out because I was like, I don't want to get sent home like I'm actually in labor. And she's like, I know, but if you don't progress in the next hour, but they weren't like going to keep me if I wasn't like progressing, I guess. So, but there was no one else there. There was literally like one other lady there giving birth, and she was giving birth to like twins, but it was like an induction. So everything for that was already planned out. So I was the only one up there, and I am like, I know I'm gonna progress, but because I was having such consistent, such consistent contractions, but I was really worried that they were gonna send me home. Like, once they tell you that they're gonna monitor you for a while and decide if they'll keep you, like that's gonna give anyone like anxiety, you know? So they come check me, not even an hour later, and I was a 6. And you know those things, so like they were like, yeah girl, we're definitely keeping you here. Well, you know those things, the monitors they put on your stomach to monitor the baby? Well, I noticed that Zoey's heart rate was like, it wasn't normal. Like, it was very inconsistent, and I was kind of nervous, but I was like, you know, these are probably just the way they're messed up. And so I was laying on like my back and my side. I was trying to lay however was comfortable because they wouldn't let me get up to labor while those monitors were on me. They wanted me to lay there while they monitored my progression and stuff. And then I think after they decided to keep me and stuff and monitored me for an hour, I was going to be able to get up and labor how I wanted. Well, we noticed that was happening to her heart rate a lot and that it was very inconsistent. And so I asked her, because we thought maybe just the monitors were messed up, so I kept moving them, trying to like get them. Like, I know you're not supposed to move them yourself, but she came in and then she was watching it and she noticed that every time I had a contraction, I had these things called, like, I had like double contractions. So my contractions, almost every single one of them, peaks twice. So my contractions would like peak at like 45 seconds, and then they would start to go down and they would peak again, and then it would take like another 30 seconds for them to go down. So my contractions were really like 90 seconds long. And that was so hard. But something that they noticed once we said that like her heart rate was being weird on the monitors, I thought it was the monitors, she watched her heart rate while I had a contraction and noticed that her heart rate started dropping. So we started moving positions, and then I got on my left side, which is like the best side to lay on when you are pregnant, and her heart rate was very good there, like if I stayed on my left side. But every time I moved to a different position, her heart rate dropped. So it ended up, I couldn't labor the way I wanted to. I wanted to walk around and maybe like use the shower or sit on the birthing ball, because the birthing ball, like that shit helps you progress so fast. But I couldn't do that. I had to stay on my left side. And I had really bad back labor with Zoey as well. So when I laid on my left side, my back hurt so bad and it felt like my hips were like splitting in half, if that makes sense. It was so painful. But at this point, I still hadn't had an epidural. I was at an 8. Within another hour, I was at an 8. And so we were like, yeah, like my water still hadn't broke on its own. Okay, sorry guys, my phone died and I had to wait for it to turn back on so I could finish recording this. But what was I saying? Okay, so I was at an 8, and I was still, had no epidural or anything. I stalled at an 8. So they weren't really sure why, because I was progressing so well, and my water wouldn't break. They were gonna try to let my water break on its own. So I was getting really anxious, and they kept, because her heart rate wasn't, what are you doing? Her heart rate was dropping to about 45 or below beats per minute every time I had a contraction. And that was terrifying to me, because like obviously like she wasn't handling labor well, and we didn't know why. Even after a while of laying on my side, my left side, that still wasn't working. And so I had oxygen, because they noticed like my breathing. I was watching the monitor, which was really bad because I was getting really anxious. So my breathing was off when I would see her breathing drop. So I had to use oxygen for a little bit, and that helped. But then it got to the point where I was like, I think I'm too stressed. I need an epidural, because my contractions were still coming insanely quickly, because my contractions were so strong and it didn't seem like she was handling them very well. So it was making me, you got the pen? It was making me so, worried. So it was making me really worried. So I did ask for the epidural, and then I'm like, no, I don't want it. Like, I don't want it. And then, so they called in, my mom was like, she doesn't want it. And so then after, that was like an hour after I was stuck at an 8. So then another hour about passes, I want to say. Yeah, it was, I think like another hour passed. And I was still at an 8 when they checked me, and they were all so confused. They're like, maybe an 8.5, like, but nothing's really happening. They had broke my water and everything, and I don't really know why I wasn't progressing, but my contractions, I still felt them in my back and everywhere. Like, it was still a ton of pressure, but I didn't feel the need to push yet. So I was really confused, and I thought I had gone through transition because it got really painful, but I hadn't. And so then I asked for the epidural again, because I was like, I can't do this. I'm in so much pain. I cannot do this. So they asked for it, and they're like, honey, I don't even know if it's gonna get here on time. So they asked for it, and right after I asked for it, I had a really, really intense contraction, and I was shaking. Like, I felt something happen with that contraction. Like, I felt her push down, and they saw it too. They were like, oh my gosh. And then her heart rate was fine after that. It was like after she got through that one, like, I don't know, it's like she was trying to like break through. Her heart rate stopped dropping when I had a contraction. And so then I had almost like 3 minutes in between those contractions. I had one more insane contraction, and I was like, I'm pushing her out. And they were like, of course you are, honey. Like, I know that's how it feels. And I'm like, I know, I'm serious. I'm pushing her out. And my mom looks and she was like, you need to come like deliver this baby. She is pushing her out. And they were like, you can't deliver her yet. You can't deliver her yet. The doctor's not in here. And so they called the doctor because she looked and she's like, oh my gosh, she's coming out. So it went from an 8.5 to me like asking for an epidural. 2 contractions later, her head is coming out. So as the nurses like come in and the doctor runs in and everything, the guy with the epidural opens the door and we're all like, get out. She's not having an epidural. And he was like, oh, okay. So then he like left, and the doctor's coming in, and I'm like, they're literally telling me to stop pushing. I'm like, I can't stop pushing. When I felt this, it was such an excruciating pain. I had never expected it to feel like, I felt like everything was going to just come out of me. And the only relief you get from that insane like pain is from pushing. That's the only relief you get from those insane contractions. So I was still having like the crazy intense contractions once she was ready to come out, and I just wanted to push so bad, and they were telling me not to push and I was still pushing. I was like, I have to get her out, like I cannot hold it. I tried for a minute, but it felt like an hour before that doctor got in here. Not really, just like a little bit. Like it felt like a good hour before the doctor came in, but it wasn't. It was maybe 5 minutes. So the doctor comes over, she has one glove on, runs over, and she's like, okay. And so I pushed, and her like whole head came out, and then I took one more push and she came out. And she literally had one glove on, barely caught her, and she's like, here, grab her. So as soon as she came out, I got to bend over, pick her up, and put her on my chest. They found out after she was born that just like Charlotte, she had an insanely short cord, like even shorter than Charlotte's. So every contraction I had pressed down, her cord was over top of her shoulder like this. Every contraction I had, it pushed her, which pushed her cord up, and it was like cutting off where her cord was, and that's why her oxygen was dropping so low until she pushed through that until she dropped even lower. And then that's why, I guess, I don't know, that's why she was having so much trouble with her heart rate when I was in labor. But after that, I pulled her up on me, and she was perfectly healthy. She was very purple, and that was scary, but that's just because of her oxygen being so low, and when she was in me and not doing well through the labor. So with Zoey, I had an all-natural, unmedicated birth. I didn't even have the, I know there's like a pain relief they can put in through an IV or something. Not an IV, I know there's like another type of like pain relief that you can get that's not an epidural, but I didn't have that. The only thing I had was nausea medicine because I was extremely nauseous with her, and I was extremely nauseous when I was in labor with Charlotte. Yeah, you made me nauseous, huh? But other than that, she got her color back really fast. She was a healthy 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 20.25 inches long. So she was just a little bit heavier than Charlotte and a little bit shorter than Charlotte. And now she's just a teensy tiny little girl. She's like barely gained 10 pounds since birth, but she's, oh, you got a little flower crown? So cute. But yeah, that is my labor and delivery story with Zoey, And I will say that it was amazing being able to recover after Zoey's birth without an epidural. I didn't have a hard time recovering from Charlotte's, but it was just like, it was crazy just being able to move and have full control over my body as soon as she was born. It helped me get more comfortable and like handle the pain and stuff. What was really hard was the getting stitched. I had like 2 tears with Zoey, and So when they were stitching me up from that, not having any epidural, like you just have like a topical numbing cream, that hurt really bad, but I was holding my baby, so like I didn't care that hurt, you know? And then Zoey, she cried right off the bat, and she did not stop crying for like over an hour. I mean, she did, she stopped on and off, but she cried a lot right off the bat, and it's like you don't even hear those cries. It's like the most amazing sound in the world, is like your baby crying right after they're born. So yeah, that is Zoey's labor and delivery story. I will go over a little bit of the differences between an epidural birth and a natural birth. Mainly just the pain. I mean, I think everyone's experience is going to be different, especially with who gives you your epidural, what kind of epidural you get. Some people will just go in and numb the shit out of you so you cannot feel a thing, and that is not what I wanted. I wanted to feel like 60% of my pain, not 100%, you know, with Charlotte when I got the epidural, and that's exactly what I got. I could still feel pressure and pain, and I could still feel when I needed to push. So I really did not mind my epidural with Charlotte, and the recovery didn't give me any lasting side effects. With Zoey, I am very, very proud of myself that I had a natural birth, because that was my goal. I wasn't going to be upset if I had an epidural, obviously. I just wanted my baby girl to be born healthy, and she was, but I am very proud that I was able to do that. Like, it was such an incredible feeling to be able to give birth to my child with no pain medication. But our next baby, when we have our next baby, I will have the goal in mind to not have an epidural again. And if I ask for it and I get it, then I ask for it and I get it. There's no shame in that, and I am perfectly okay either way. I hope you guys enjoyed Zoey's birth story, and give this video a big thumbs up if you did, and I will see you in my next video.
I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old. Please tell me you'll stay or take me